for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA, Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It is freezing here in Chicago on Moving Mountain Day and J Lunch Club. So grateful that our weekly series, Moving Mountain Mondays, includes Ernest Krim III, an Emmy-nominated producer, public teacher, anti-racist educator, hate crime victor who uses Black historical narratives to empower and educate through a culturally equitable lens. Mr. Krim is a South Side of Chicago native and University of Urbana-Champaign graduate, former high school history educator of 12 years who now also advocates for social justice issues and teaches Black history to the world through social media, a platform that reaches roughly 4 million people each month as of 2024. As such, he has created content for companies such as HBO, Hulu, Disney, Paramount, the History Channel. Additionally, he is the CEO of Krim's Cultural Consulting, LLC, an international speaker who's spoken at Harvard University, the University of Chicago, Microsoft, Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights Camp, and audiences in the United Kingdom and Canada, and author of 2 books and passionate about progressive educational causes. I'm particularly honored that Ernest Krim is our very special guest and regular communicator and participant on Monday mornings or Monday afternoons, if you will, on the J Lunch Club. Hey, Ernest, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, what's up, my brother? It's good to be back here with you. It's been so much going on. I know we got a lot to discuss.
Hey, why don't we pick up on some of the issues that are going on? Why don't we start there? I was looking at the news a few moments ago and found a GOP senator has now decided to buck the Trump administration. I received that text message from you earlier saying, hey, we need to deal with this. He says that Obamacare is putting America first. Ernest, your thoughts?
It's unbelievable because it's unbelievable because the first thing that pops up in my mind, because I was reading an article this morning about this was actually a white guy right outside of Nashville, and he was talking about how he had to essentially get rid of his health care because the premiums went up, and he and his wife lost a job in December. So they were kind of struggling and just essentially hoping that they didn't get sick and wouldn't need it because they couldn't afford the extra $70 a month now. I'm not sure how they voted. I don't think that's important right now to the conversation, but we do know that Tennessee, of course, is a red state. But as I was reflecting on that, I couldn't help but think about a student I once had maybe 10, 11 some odd years ago, and I talk about this in my book. And this was a white kid from a surrounding town that was very conservative. He was the minority in the school in his racial group and as well as his political ideology. And this kid was 16 years old, and he absolutely hated Obama and everything he stood for. He hated Obamacare. And as a good teacher, I would often engage him in conversations to try to really pinpoint, I knew why he felt that way, right? But I wanted him to be able to provide proof. And he never could. So when I think about where we are now in this country, I'm reflecting on, I wonder where this young man is. And him being in a, lower middle class environment, I'm assuming he may, is 1% of the population probably doesn't have to deal with this as a concern. And I'm thinking he's just like every other American, and we need health care. We need something that's affordable, not the Obamacare Act, the Affordable Care Act. And I think we're at a point now where so many people are being humbled to realize that this is actually what we should have been supporting the whole time. But the actions of 10 years ago, my point in bringing this up has led to where we are right now, at a point where now we have some GOP senators and congressmen saying, hey, you know what? We actually do need this. And we just have to hope that it's not too late.
The article in Politico says this GOP senator says reviving Obamacare subsidies would be putting America first. If the Senate is going to strike a deal to revive a signature Democratic policy, it will be in part because of an unlikely broker, a freshman Republican from the party's MAGA wing. Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio is, on paper, an odd fit in the core of about a dozen senators in talks to extend Obamacare credits that lapsed on January 1st. Most are well-known bipartisan deal makers, such as Republican Susan Collins and Democrat Jeanne Shaheen. Moreno, on the other hand, joined the Senate a year ago. And as President Donald Trump anointed loyalist who had just defeated longtime Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown with hardline attacks focused mainly on immigration, but he has a key asset, a close relationship with Trump, who will need to bless or at least tacitly accept any agreement to smooth its passage through Congress. I think the political reality, Brother Kareem, of it's an election year, people are calling their members of Congress's office, their senators' offices, their premiums are exploding through the roof. And, well, many of these Republican senators and congressmen are going to have to come to Jesus.
Yeah, and we have to hope that they stay there, metaphorically stay in the church, and we have to hope that if they don't, then people don't elect them again. With him being this bold, he might not be a returning senator. He might, this 6 years might be it for him. But I hope that during that time, because he switched sides apparently, I hope during his time of realizing he needs to put America first, as he is now, presumably, that we actually get the change that we desire. Who would have thought that a black man who made his career in Chicago when he became the president, was actually putting Americans first and not the current president, who's a white guy who people would assume based on his background and talking points. Wow.
Amazing. A lot of people are feeling the heat right through this election year. I might add, when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, we're going to turn our attention to the 1-year anniversary of the Haitian earthquake, where more than 300,000 Haitian people lost their lives. And we're going to deal with a little bit of that because this is the time that the United States Agency for International Development, which Trump dismantled, would be working its way to Haiti to provide goodwill to the people of that great country. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 with Ernest Krim.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to partner with the Empowerment Congress once again for their 34th annual summit. The summit's theme is From Vision to Action, a forum to unlock participatory democracy, and will feature a nonpartisan gubernatorial candidate forum focused on issues of importance to the African American community. The summit is the signature public policy-oriented observance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy during the national 3-day holiday weekend that celebrates his life. This year's summit will be held on Saturday, January 17th, 2026 at the California Science Center in Exposition Park from 9 to 11 a.m. Admission is free, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. All major announced candidates for California governor for the Democratic and Republican Party nominations have been invited to participate in the candidate forum, which will be moderated by Tavis Smiley. An all-star panel of journalists will pose questions to the candidates, and the forum will be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580. This is going to be a big year for local, state, and national politics. The political pulse of 2026 beats on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's game day. Are your moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keeping you from the action? Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, could help you get back to the game. Skyrizi is proven to help people feel significant symptom relief, achieve remission, and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. Skyrizi is a prescription injection medicine for adults. Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or ulcerative colitis.
Control is everything to me.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's and ulcerative colitis combined. Learn more at skyrizi.com or 1-866-SKYRIZI.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. For 40 years, I have had the privilege, and I don't use that word lightly, the privilege of sitting down with presidents, world leaders, authors, artists, activists, the folk who shape our world. Thousands of conversations, tens of thousands of questions. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the art of conversation is dying. So here's what I'm going to do about it. I am now going to teach what these almost 40 years have taught me, how to have conversations that matter. 6 courses, from the anatomy of a great conversation to generous listening as a superpower to handling difficult exchanges without losing your dignity or your mind. Go to tavistalks.com right now. That's tavistalks.com. Download the free guide, see what's coming, sign up to be the first to know when we launch the series. Conversation is a skill, and like any skill, it can be taught. I'll see you in class.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. J Lunch Club.
KBLA.
Professor Ernest Krim, our very special contributor on Mondays in the classroom with Mr. Ernest Krim. Ernest, welcome forward to the show.
Hey, what's up, brother? Thanks again for having me.
Always a pleasure, brother. Listen, 16 years ago today, Haiti suffered one of the most devastating earthquakes in the history of our hemisphere, and it killed nearly 300,000 people. Haiti is still recovering from that quake. Mr. Krim?
You know, when I hear about this, it's hard to believe it's been that long. I recall actually being in my first year of teaching, actually on the south side of Chicago. And I found out about this. And I think a lot of the question that a lot of my students had, of course, during that time was, well, why, for what, not about the earthquake, but why was there so much poverty there? And I was upset that I did not learn about the historical context of why Haiti was so impoverished and why they are still fighting to this day to repair their country. Many folks might not know, for one, they're also celebrating their Independence Day this month, which I think is very coincidental. And also, too, when they gained independence after defeating France and becoming an independent state, defeating a global superpower and eradicating slavery from their country, they were punished for that. Mm-hmm. They were placed in debt, not just by France, but various other European colonial powers, including America, who refused to acknowledge that they were, in fact, independent. They didn't want that news to get to America because they knew that it would inspire other Black folks to do something similar. So we have to always remember Haiti within that historical context, because Haiti and what they did there also had an impact on what we would do 50, 60 some odd years later. They impacted the entire world of African people in the diaspora and that small island on the Western hemisphere of that island. When I reflect now, I think, again, within that context, that Haiti cannot be repaired until these colonial powers repair them, provide them with reparations the way that they are deserving. And without that, we cannot properly equip them of what they need to be doing moving forward. You also have to think about what Trump is doing right now. To me, it's a blatant attack, not just on the island of the people who are there currently, but the people who are here presently. ending the TPS, temporary protection status of all the Haitians who are here. And again, we have to remember when we talk about what ICE is doing, when we talk about immigrants, I know we are a small percentage of those folks, but there are Black folks in the diaspora, including not just the continent of Africa, but in Haiti, folks who have come here for a better life and who have been contributing to this economy of ours, who are being targeted by this president as well. So to me, it's all connected. The way we are treating Haitians who have come here for protection is the same way that we continue to mistreat Haitians on the island right now.
You know, I find your point to be brilliant. The point that movements, for example, Haitian liberation, impacted other movements around the world for liberation. Just as our civil rights movement, Nelson Mandela, when he emerged from prison in South Africa, said that he was inspired in his 27-year prison ordeal to fight for democracy within South Africa, and that white Afrikaners could exist as a minority under a constitution, just like minorities have existed under the United States Constitution. But to the point that no matter how small the country is, or even how small the liberation movement is, the idea of freedom and liberation actually extends and inspires other groups within other countries around the world. And Haiti is one of those shining examples.
Yeah, movements are magnetic. And when we come across information like that, you know, that's why knowledge is so powerful. When we talk about history, we're not talking about these old books. We're talking about stories that we can connect to. So if you were to come across this information, let's say if you were privileged enough to be able to read in the 1800s as a Black person on this landmass, then you would then compare that to your situation and say, well, what can we then do, right? There's no coincidence that we had liberation movements around New Orleans at this time, rebellions that were quelled because they were inspired by that. It's no coincidence that we had Nat Turner and we had David Walker's book, which was banned, or even 30 some odd years after that, Harriet Beecher Stowe, a white woman who spoke out against slavery, whose book was banned. Because when you read that information, you begin to say, well, if they did it, then why can't we? Or if they went through that, that kind of sounds very similar. And look, these lines from history are not a straight line. We're all over the place with this, but we cannot disconnect the fact that not only did they deal with that earthquake, but they are still struggling to repair with what happened with them being placed in debt for gaining freedom. That is the most ludicrous thing when you truly think about it. That's the equivalent of, and we know what our ancestors had to deal with here with the debt slavery we were placed in, the tenant farming and sharecropping. I mean, that's bad enough, but imagine being forced to pay as a group of people in this country after the Civil War, billions of dollars to your government. That is how they've operated all across the world. And that's why claims for reparations here, which are old and demand, are also important, because if something like that happens here, not just in a city, not just in a town, not just in a village, not just in a state, but across the country, then that inspires other people across the country, across the world, the same way we were inspired by that island. And for us to truly get the justice that we deserve here, we also have to support our brothers and sisters in Haiti, because if they don't get it there, then who's to say we can ever get it here?
What comes to mind is the name Francois Dominique Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint Louverture was a Haitian general and the most prominent leader of the Haitian Revolution. During his life, Louverture was first fought and allied with Spanish forces against Saint-Dominique royalists, then joined with Republican France, becoming governor general for life of Saint-Dominique, and lastly fought against Bonaparte's Republican troops. That's right, Toussaint Louverture defeated Napoleon Bonaparte. As a revolutionary leader, Louverture displayed military and political acumen that helped transform the fledgling slave rebellion into a revolutionary movement. We ought to make the distinction, Ernest, between a slave rebellion and a movement that continued after the rebellion, demanding total, complete liberation of a people. Along with Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Louverture is known as one of the fathers of Haiti. I also understand, my mother often shares with me, that it was the Haitians who joined the American Revolution on the side of the founding fathers of our republic in the effort to fight the British. Imagine that. A black, free country gave troops
Yeah.
to the United States of America in order to continue the struggle for liberation, not just in Haiti, but throughout the United States. And it's somewhat amazing that at Haiti's most desperate need in their history, the United States of America, the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, can't find the time or the resources to help Haiti during this critical time.
You know, we don't even have Chicago without a Haitian man. Du
Mm.
Sable, or as I've heard some people pronounce Jean Point du Sable. We don't have this to exercise my broken French a little bit. we don't have what we know as Chicago. A man who, now this is what I'm gonna give y'all for the folks that's listening across the country and LA and everything. I want y'all to understand, because I know in LA their history, is often overshadowed as well. If you can imagine, in Chicago, there was only a small bust to commemorate the man who was the first permanent resident of this, what became Chicago, of course, outside of our indigenous brothers and sisters, like a very small bus, and you have to go by the Chicago River. If y'all come visit, you'll see that in comparison to, like, we have George Washington, Christopher Columbus statues and stuff, like, who have nothing to do with this landmass, right? And I think what to me is pivotal about it for us to understand is they know that if a group of black people are allowed to live freely without these systemic barriers, that for one, it leads to us creating what we've always wanted to create, things like Black Wall Street, Bronzeville in Chicago, and places like that, right? Harlem, New York, right? But it also inspires others to say, we can do that same thing. So it's also, to me, metaphorical that they would put that foot down and keep that foot on their neck so that the world could see. And the assumption, without context, right? When I was in my first year of teaching, I had to give my kids context that I had not even had yet. The assumption is black people who are impoverished around the world are that way because they simply did not work hard enough, or that because there's something wrong with them. When I speak to kids, and I should say audiences too, when I speak to educators, I bring up this question. I say, do you believe that the gaps we see in literacy and math is a result of our children, a result of their destiny, or a result of the design of the system? If you believe that it is the result of the destiny of our kids, then you believe inherently in anti-blackness. And for us as a community too, we have to reflect on that. The poverty we see in Haiti, the poverty we see in some places in Africa, is not a result of who we are. It's a result of a system that has practiced the most unheard of violence known to man globally in the past 500 years.
I find it interesting because when you look at the chronology, the role that the Haitian Revolution plays, and it's a slave rebellion and then a revolutionary period, inspires the American Revolution, but the Haitian Revolution also inspires Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, which led to the Cuban Revolution and obviously the Cuban Missile Crisis, which also led to revolutionary movements in Venezuela, in Mexico, in Panama, in other parts of South America, largely inspired by the slave rebellion and then revolutionary movements to determine self-determination and to determine their own fate in South America. And I know we only have a couple of minutes before we come forward, but I think it's kind of fascinating, speaking of Venezuela, that Donald Trump and the oil companies are in a dispute right now over the kind of crude that comes out of Venezuela. Now, this crude is not like the kind that we see on the Beverly Hillbillies, where Jed took a shotgun and blew a hole in is trying to shoot a rabbit, and some bubbling crude came out. Venezuelan crude is thicker than Murray's grease. Some of you all who still use Murray's hair grease know exactly how thick it is, and it requires additional refinement. First of all, you got to get it out of the earth, which isn't just like bubbling crude that comes up through a drill and a pipe and then is loaded on a tanker or into a refinery and then onto a tanker. This stuff is so thick, it's like asphalt. And so all the oil companies are now saying, you know what, we appreciate what you've done, Mr. Trump, which they shouldn't appreciate, trying to steal these people's oil. It turns out to be so thick and so costly to refine that the oil companies are saying that we don't want it. How about that, Mr. Krim?
I think it's very symbolic. It's very profound because I think it begs the question: all of that for what? and I think that's the question we have to ask about this whole thing. You did all of this for what? You gonna suffer too? You know, it's like
the same government that they took Maduro from is still running the country of Venezuela. Ideologically, it's the same party, it's the same underlings of Maduro still running the country because they have a revolutionary spirit that is against being occupied or colonialized by any foreign power. And they got that from the Haitians and the Jamaicans and the Cubans and others who insisted upon the liberation and freedom of their people. They got that spirit in the latter half of the 20th century from the freedom movement here in the United States, just as Mandela got the same freedom movement and spirit from the United States during his 27-year period of incarceration. For the Krim?
Movements are magnetic, and that entire Latin American hemisphere is still bubbling. You know, like our people, oppressed people, cannot be stopped for long. You know, you cannot remove somebody and think that is not going to impact the way they view your country. It's an attempt to show strength, but it's really an obvious display of weakness.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the J Lunch Club, Moving Mountain Mondays, our first hour, Mr. Krim's Classroom. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. About 16,000 nurses are on strike in New York City over pay, demanding a 40% raise, a request hospitals like Mount Sinai and New York Presbyterian call unrealistic.
The nurses united will never be defeated. The nurses united will never be defeated.
The hospitals say patient care will continue with travel nurses, while Governor Kathy Hochul has declared a disaster emergency. Muhammad Ali is being honored with his own U.S. postal stamp this week. The USPS will hold a first day of issue event Thursday in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. The stamp features a black and white photo of Ali in his iconic boxing pose, and it's available for pre-order now. And Sean Diddy Combs reportedly sold his private jet just before being sentenced to 50 months in prison on prostitution charges. Silver Air says the sale happened in October 2025. Diddy's attorneys have not commented. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Keep your radar up on probable changes coming with the Chargers, especially on offense. The Chargers have lost 3 straight first-round games in the playoffs. The Chargers' last playoff win was in the 2018 season at Baltimore. In 2 playoff games with head coach Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers have scored a combined 15 points, just 3 field goals and 1 touchdown. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman should get a head start on updating his resume. The Rams are 3.5-point favorites over the Chicago Bears. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is dealing with a sprained finger on his throwing hand. He said he's going to play Sunday in Chicago. Top 5 women's college basketball teams in this week's top 25 rankings: UConn, South Carolina, 15-1 UCLA, Texas, and Vanderbilt. UCLA moved up a spot from 4th to 3rd. USC, which has lost 3 straight, dropped out of the top 25. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Whoa,
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
My name is Tyrone Owens, and this is my home for 23 years that burned in the fire. Me and my wife, Charlene, we had this whole yard decorated every year.
This was the house that sparkled throughout the entire neighborhood on all the holidays. It's a community that will never be the same due to the negligence of the utility company. So I am pretty upset about that.
We were nowhere near being able to rebuild with our insurance. It's going to cost $1 million to put your house back up.
I want to get back to that point where we were before the fire. I'm starting to get emotional, but I'll work through it. LA Fire Justice has been wonderful for us. They're just caring people. We have all faith in them.
Big ups to LA Fire Justice, who's given us hope to rebuild 100%.
Advertisement. Douglas Foster, 221 East Walnut Street, Suite 100, Pasadena, California, 91101 is the attorney responsible for this ad.
LA Fire Justice is proud to sponsor Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
It all comes down to this, folks. Yep, the entire season is on the line.
But my throat has officially thrown in the towel.
Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. They're max strength and vaporize sore throat pain.
Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That pun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part? They accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
Looking for something new? Try fencing, the Olympic and Paralympic sport that mixes speed, strategy, and fun. It's like chess meets cardio. Quick feet, quick decisions, and a satisfying beat when you score a point. Kids, teens, and adults can start anytime. No experience needed, and many clubs have loaner gear. Coaches teach fundamentals and safety from day one. Find a beginner class near you at usafencing.org/tryfencing. That's usafencing.org/tryfencing.
Picture this, you're on a date, and then bad breath happens. Confidence gone. Here's the truth. Most gums and mints are just bad breath Band-Aids, but not Zellman's Minty Mouth. The functional breath freshener you swallow. Tiny dual-action capsules with mint on the outside, parsley seed oil inside, clinically tested to fight the toughest offenders, even garlic and onions. It's only available online. Go to Zellmans.com, Zelmins, Zellmans.com, code FRESH for 15% off.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the classroom with Ernest Krim on Moving Mountain Mondays in the J Lunch Club. Ernest, welcome forward to Mr. Krim's classroom.
Hey, what's up, brother? Thanks again for having me.
Her name, Ernest, is Lisa Donnell Cook, born in 1964, an American economist who was sworn in as a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors in 2022. She is the first Black woman to sit on the board. Before her appointment to the Federal Reserve Board, she was elected in January of 2022 to the Board of Directors of the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Donald Trump has done everything in his power to get rid of her, but the breaking news in the country is that because he cannot control Federal Reserve Board Chairman Jerome Powell, the president and the Department of Justice has now authorized, I believe there is a sitting grand jury, to look into the construction of the Federal Reserve building, and their target is now the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. I'm convinced that America will never be the same again. That all of the cultural norms, all of the legal norms have been broken. Ernest, the consequences of the president of the United States being able to dictate interest rates for the United States and world financial systems is nothing short of extraordinary.
Yeah, I think that what first thing we should extract from this is, for one, you have to understand that coming from any of our circumstances, whether we are Black Americans historically or folks who have come in from a different country, we have had to overcome insurmountable odds to get to that point. So she is exceptional, but she would be shown as if she was simply a DEI hire, which we know that is incorrect and fallacious. The second thing I get from that too is we have to remember and understand that those who operate under this mindset and belief of white supremacy, we know that is an ideology, a belief is not something you're born with. They would be willing to sacrifice. And we're seeing this in real time, so this shouldn't be a surprise, but I want us to really see this and understand that what's happening is they would be willing to sacrifice the country, the republic, so that we couldn't all have equitable access to the things that we need and desire and should have in this country. The Federal Reserve controls our interest rates. They can influence inflation, right? We're talking they can shape our employment conditions. We're talking about an impact on housing, student loans, small businesses,
credit cards,
right? How we acquire wealth as a whole. As long as he's good, which again, that's really a misnomer. That in the long run, he won't be. But as long as he appears to be good financially, he could care less about the rest of us. And again, now that we're talking about going back to what we first discussed with some of the GOP coming on board and saying, yo, we need to actually keep this healthcare, we have to all be wondering, is it too little too late? Because the vast majority of people who will be impacted numerically will be white folks. And we know a majority of them voted for this right here. We know he shouldn't be allowed to do that, but he doesn't care. He's going to find, he acts first and validates it later. And he's going to find someone in a position of power that's completely fine with it. Unfortunately, most often the Supreme Court.
I find it fascinating also in terms of breaking the historical norms that just last week, before the government issued an official labor report that, of course, impacts the stock market, consumer confidence, how people feel about the economy, he tweeted the numbers on his personal account before the government released the numbers, which, of course, on Fat Meat Fridays, Gina Towns suggested this is some kind of insider trading scheme. And Bishop Tolton, who has an MBA from Vassar College, Bishop Tolton was really clear. Follow the money. Look at the members of Congress, members of the Senate, and members of the administration who made trades either before or after the president's announcement, before the official statistics were released by the government. Ernest, your thoughts on having powerful and important friends in high places?
You know, it amazes me. You know, somebody, while we were on break, I was watching a video on TikTok and somebody said, this educator was like, you know how disturbing it is that the news cycle has mostly moved on to what happened to Maduro. And it's not like there isn't a justifiable reason why, because there's just so much happening. But like, 20, 30 years ago, we would have sat with something for an entire week. I say that to say it is unbelievable the amount and the degree to which they keep us on this hamster wheel with so much information. It does all matter. But by the time you pay attention to something like this, they're on to the next thing. And having that access to power makes it that much more pivotal to us. And when I see these tweets or whatever it is, I think it's on the Truth Social app or whatever, I think what also is disturbing to me is the fact that I understand and know, especially if you know how like politicians operate and stuff, they don't most often even manage their social media accounts. This stuff goes through filters. There are people who like, he might say he wants to post it. It's not a good idea. And the team still does it. Or sometimes which is even more alarming, it's probably their idea too to go along with something like this. And in that case, it really is an inside job. They're all colluding to aggregate what they presume to be power. But again, just, I'm reminded oftentimes when I see things like, the climate issues in LA, or how in Chicago on a random January it's 60 degrees. Like, the climate don't lie. Like, it's that type of stuff. That's my metaphor for, like, this stuff is going to impact us all, and it's only so much you can do to avoid it.
While the news cycle has moved on from the capture of Maduro, it has not moved on in Chicago from the Bears versus the Packers.
Rightfully so.
This is going to be a long cycle, my brother. Ernest, your thoughts. I know that we have just about 1 minute, 2 minutes before we come forward. Are you sensing any shifting in terms of voter enthusiasm for the midterm elections?
I am. I'm sensing a shift, but here's again what worries me. Just like I said about the news cycle, it could last for a day. It could last for a couple months, right? We need to, like, in some ways, we need to keep track of all of the stories that are triggering Americans to come to their senses, right? And not because we want to trigger people, but because we know, okay, this is what has resonated with folks that has already been impacting us, but now on a high degree. And we need to say, once it's election season, we have to go revisit them. There, as an educator, what I hate too is understanding that, because we prepare for final exams. I got to go back. If the final exam is December, I might have to go back to October. Kids forgot it, but that's still important to what you understand in December. So by the time it's election season, October, November, we got to go back to what's happening right now and say, don't forget this happened. Don't forget this happened. I don't want to keep talking to people in Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. I know we do that naturally, but we're talking, look, humanity, people, everybody. This is what's happening to you in this moment. He don't discriminate against who he discriminates against. And poor white folks, y'all are feeling it more than anybody because of your numbers. Will you wake up finally?
We have not much time before we come forward, but I do want to comment on this. And I find it interesting. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next segment. That Bill Gates has now said that he has set a time limit on when the United States and the world will enter into a new dark age. The definition of what Bill Gates means by a dark age could certainly take us back to the dark ages on the prehistory before the United States. Very, very difficult times and periods for the idea of civilization. But I think it's a cautionary tale. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. My very special guest and regular contributor, Mr. Ernest Krim, Mr. Krim's Classroom, on Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You're listening to the J Lunch Club. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. Your info is in endless places that could expose you to identity theft, leading to lost funds. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
It all comes down to this, folks. Yep, the entire season is on the line.
But my throat has officially thrown in the towel.
Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. Their max strength and vaporize sore throat pain.
Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That pun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now, all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the J Lunch Club. Ernest Krim's Classroom on Moving Mountain Mondays. Ernest, welcome forward to the show.
Hey, what's up, brother? Good to be back with you.
Hey, as much as I want to pick up on what we ended on in the last segment, I do want to raise this question because you're such a brilliant historian. As you know, we did earn some civil rights protections coming out of slavery in first Reconstruction. The first Civil Rights Acts of the United States were offered during a number of those legislative sessions and produced some minimal progress for the freedmen. And then from Brown versus the Board of Education to the present, we've issued and offered many, many civil rights acts, the 1964 Civil Rights Act being chief amongst them. But the Americans with Disabilities Act is a civil rights act. Protections for the LGBTQ community are Civil Rights Act. Extending protections for women is a form of civil rights. Roe v. Wade is an extension of the idea of civil rights, women having the right to make decisions about their own bodies. So the forms and the ways in which civil rights have presented themselves not just for Blacks who were denied access to buses, lunch counters, water fountains, and classrooms, but civil rights has really transformed the idea of democracy itself. Here's what Donald Trump says recently. Trump says civil rights led to white people being treated very badly. Ernest, help us with this.
You gotta give me some time to laugh sometimes. I need like a 5-second buffer. But it's not funny because it's really it impacts us, right? Because at one point in time, this was just commentary from a rich guy from New York, right? But now it has political, social, economic consequences. I just it's what's hurts me again as a former classroom teacher is he speaks at a level that is so easily digestible that if you are emotional, you connect with it without any critical thinking. Because if you are a white person who has never been exposed to the black community, you went to your like little segregated school in the middle of Kentucky somewhere, or maybe in West Virginia, and Appalachian area, and you think that we're the problem, and you hear that, you're like, yeah, that's not fair because no. And I know I'm not saying white folks haven't dealt with poverty. We know the class issues in this country. But what he's alluding to with that is white people deserve to have racial privileges. And when I say privileges, I mean economic benefits as a result of violence, systemic violence, physical violence, psychological violence. These are, I don't even know if we can call them dog whistles anymore, man. I don't know what these are like. I mean, this is over the intercom for everybody to hear. It's no longer a dog whistle. It's a referee whistle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, again, so I said this recently when I was talking to a group of kids. After revolts happened, particularly in 1739 with the Stono Rebellion, they would ban a variety of things. Black folks couldn't meet in person together without permission, and but I also wanted to pinpoint the fact that they would ban firearms, yeah, but they would also again ban knowledge, right? And think about that being on the same level. To most people, they would assume, oh, well, no, like that weapon is more valuable. But why would they repeatedly in every generation, not just back then, not just 1739, but 2026, still seek to ban that same thing? Not just for us black folks, but for everybody else. So you don't have historical context to call out that foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that white folks have had all of these social benefits
forever
is the reason why a mediocre white guy like him could become the leader of this country and put us in a dangerous position like this.
You're preaching now, brother. Hey, let me throw this out at you. There has been no history since the inception of the United States that white men or white people have been discriminated against. There is no history that their civil rights have ever been violated. There's just no history of that. And I find it particularly puzzling that the President of the United States is now, and the Department of Justice is willing to bring lawsuits, civil lawsuits, for white men who can claim that they've been discriminated against by these laws. And that, my friends, really, really does turn the idea of the American experiment on its head. Ernest, before we get to your word of hope, share with our listeners a little bit about your books and share with us how we can stay in touch with you on your various social media handles.
Definitely. So my most recent book is How Black History Can Save Your Life. It is essentially the second edition of Black History Saved My Life. It's going to give you practical tools on how to use our history in a proactive way, told from a first person narrative of how I discovered who I was after dealing with the hate crime and various other issues of racism from the time I was in first grade to the present day. The book was re-released last year, and I can promise you with everything we're dealing with now, if it's not explicitly connected to what we're talking about now, there are some indirect connections because these things happen in cycles. And in the effort to be able to give these lessons to our children, I wrote a book called The ABCs of Affirming Black Children. You'll find that one of the most prominent parts of the first part of my book is the way I was affirmed. We have to affirm Black children, especially with a sense of somebodyness and worthiness so that they can realize they are the solution to the problems we face in this world today. You all can follow me on all social medias with a slight caveat for the time being. I unfortunately have to say that my Meta pages were banned and disabled as of yesterday, and I'm trying to work to get those resolved right now. Somebody hacked my account and Meta thinks I'm the one posting a lot of craziness on my platforms, and it's not me. So if anybody's listening and they know somebody at Meta, please hit me up. Until that gets restored, I am on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Substack. Please subscribe to my newsletter. Put in my name, Ernest Krim III. You'll find me there. I'm still here.
Ernest, about a minute and 45 seconds for a word of hope.
I think the thing I'll take away from our conversation today is movements are magnetic. So we have to continue to study, especially with Dr. King's holiday coming up. Every year when we get around this day, I like to reread a lot of his works and his speeches, and I'm always inspired, but I'm also perturbed because I feel like the more the years pass by and I read, the more I realize how much we have not realized, not just his dream, but just the practicality of it all. Read, and find a way to apply it, because movements and books and those thoughts are magnetic.
I've been listening to and reading over and over and over again Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech on April 4th, I think it was, April 4th, 1967, from the Riverside Church. Those of you who can hear my voice, it's called Beyond Vietnam. Beyond Vietnam. Later this week, I will share with you the subject matter that I will be addressing at a number of events for Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and I look forward to sharing it right here on KBLA as soon as my thoughts are completed and prepared. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Ernest, thanks for being on the program today.
Thanks again for having me, brother. Look forward to next week.
Coming up next, Reverend Dr. Terry Howard Owens, the President and General Minister of the United Disciples of Christ Church. She is our regular contributor. She is the General Minister and President of a multiracial denomination, a rarity in the United States. She's our very special regular contributor on Moving Mountain Mondays. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. About 16,000 nurses are on strike in New York City over pay, demanding a 40% raise, a request hospitals like Mount Sinai and New York Presbyterian call unrealistic. The hospitals say patient care will continue with travel nurses, while Governor Kathy Hochul has declared a disaster emergency. Muhammad Ali is being honored with his own U.S. postal stamp this week. The USPS will hold a first day of issue event Thursday in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. The stamp features a black and white photo of Ali in his iconic boxing pose, and it's available for pre-order now. And Sean Diddy Combs reportedly sold his private jet just before being sentenced to 50 months in prison on prostitution charges. Silver Air says the sale happened in October 2025. Diddy's attorneys have not commented. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Keep your radar up on probable changes coming with the Chargers, especially on offense. The Chargers have lost 3 straight first-round games in the playoffs. The Chargers' last playoff win was in the 2018 season at Baltimore. In 2 playoff games with head coach Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers have scored a combined 15 points. Just 3 field goals and 1 touchdown. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman should get a head start on updating his resume. The Rams are 3.5-point favorites over the Chicago Bears. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is dealing with a sprained finger on his throwing hand. He said he's going to play Sunday in Chicago. Top 5 women's college basketball teams in this week's top 25 rankings: UConn, South Carolina, 15-1 UCLA, Texas, and Vanderbilt. UCLA moved up a spot from 4th to 3rd. USC, which has lost 3 straight, dropped out of the top 25. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. For 40